Right now, we're living through a full-fledged crisis in our democracy. Now, there are not chanks in the streets, but what's happening right now goes to the heart of who we are as a nation. And I say this not as a Democrat who lost an election, but as an American afraid of losing a country.
So as a general matter, if you watch the show, you know we don't cover Hillary Clinton because she's sad and we feel sorry for her, for real. But then she showed up at Yale, which, as you know, is one of the most impressive places in the world with some of the smartest kids on the planet. Obviously, we're very impressed by Yale. They invited her to be the commencement speaker, and so we kind of have to cover it. During her totally not bitter at all address, Clinton pulled out a Russian hat, because she's hilarious, and said, quote, "If you can't beat him, join him," because that's not a cliche. Of course, we could never beat author and columnist Mark Steyn at analyzing this behavior, so we're outsourcing it to him, so our hands are clean. We're not being mean to Hillary Clinton, who deserves our pity. We're letting Mark Steyn explain it for us. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Tucker, I love the way that Hillary is now doing visual comedy. She's disappointed she didn't get to be president. By the way, I like it when you do a visual gag that you explain it, what you're meant to find funny about it, to the audience beforehand. So when she said, "This is a Russian hat," I think, obviously, she's at a loose end, doesn't know what to do. I think Vladimir Putin should make her chief commissar of state-approved jokes in Moscow. I think she's eminently qualified for it. I personally would have preferred it. By the way, I do actually think this is the actual Russian hat that Russian intelligence agents left the Fusion GPS dossier under for Christopher Steele to find in a men's room on the Kutuvsky Prospect in Moscow. It's not normally MI6 tradecraft to take the hat, but he thought it might make a nice souvenir for Chelsea. Unfortunately, she'd already been given one by the Uranium One guy, so she gave this Russian hat to her mother, which is very thoughtful. For my own part, I think it would have been a much more effective routine if she'd worn the shubara, which has been worn, as you know, by Macedonian content farmers, the Macedonian content farmers who cost her the election, or perhaps to establish her authority, the traditional kausia, originally worn by Alexander the Great, if I recall my school days, and still favoured by Macedonian content farm overseers when they want the masses to cower in terror before them. So I felt she made a poor, like many women at the royal wedding on Saturday, she made a poor headgear choice for this occasion.
See, I knew that you could bring mirth out of one of the saddest, most heartbreaking moments I'd seen in a long time. Do you think, being honest here for a second, being sincere, do you think Yale is aware of how thoroughly it degrades its own already eroding reputation by inviting someone like this to be the commencement speaker?
Well, yeah, I do think as a serious matter that partisan politicians, when they're invited to give commencement addresses, should not talk about partisan electoral politics.
Yeah,
I mentioned Chelsea a moment ago. For some reason, Chelsea gets paid or she did before November 2016, she got paid seven-figure sums to deliver speeches on diarrhea in Africa. I wouldn't want to hear a speech on diarrhea in Africa for a commencement, but I think that's actually more seemly and appropriate for the occasion.
I agree, and less dirty than what we saw. Mark Steyn, a genius, self-evidently. Thank you. Great to see you.
Thanks a lot, Tucker.